Welcome to the Daily Dish with Leanne Ely. This is a show about you, your life, and the vibrancy you want. Join us for daily motivation, wise women's tips, and more as we collectively gather together and move the needle in our lives, heart, mind, body, and soul. Now, here is your host, Leanne Ely, and the Daily Dish.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to my back patio, deck, whatever. I am sitting out here. We are being, we got the generator going for about the 15th time. You're going to hear wind chimes and what have you. There is the lake, if you can see that just a little bit. Behind me is Lincoln's little cot with his humongous bone. Anyway, I'm outside and we're making the best that we can with what we've got. That's what you have to do. That's how we roll, right? So I want to say good afternoon to Catherine, to Darla, to Nancy. Nice to have you here. Of course, the dream team is here. Jackie's in the house. So's Diane. And we're all delighted that you're here. Cheers. Here's to all of us. Yeah, this, by the way, take a good look at this deck. It is 17 feet wide and 40 feet long. And this is where the July full bloom will be happening, unless we get too big for it. But we shall see. Kathy, good to have you here. Gracie, nice to see you. Sarah, I am advertising. Tracy, let's see who else is here. Carla is in the house as well. Michelle, lovely to have you here. Christina, Marguerite. Goodness gracious. It is pretty scenery. I mean, who would, I'm not complaining. So yeah, save those dates, July 29th and 30th. And now's the time to go get your airline reservation. Fly into Asheville if you can, or fly into Charlotte, North Carolina, or Greenville, South Carolina. Both of those, you're going to need a car. And get your reservation for your housing, because that's going to go fast. Hello, Corliss and Jocelyn. I'm so glad you're here. So we have that going on. And speaking, oh my goodness. Hello. I'm sorry. There we are. We're back in. Speaking of full bloom, April 23rd is the date for our virtual full bloom. Get that going now. savingdinner.com/bloom. We have the best swag bags we've ever put together that are just going to light you up. Hey, Joanne. Yeah, well, I'm on the deck for a reason. Let me just tell you. And if you can hear that humming noise in the background, that is our generator keeping us going. So yay. savingdinner.com/bloom. That's going to get you your ticket. This is how you check in and get you your ticket, right? I want you here is that we have magic to make, right? Magic. So the light goes on and off. I don't know what that's about. Are you getting that? Here's our quote of the day. Week. Don't watch the clock. Do what it does. Just keep going, right? Time's going to be ticking off anyway. Why not make the very, very best of it? That's what I say. We have our supplements of the week. You know them. Digestzymes and glucozyme, my two favorite things to get digestion pumping. savingdinner.com/show. Go take a peek-see at this amazing deal. If you buy 3, you can get 1 free. Amazing stuff. And tonight, by the way, is our gut health webinar. Mind-blowing stuff. You've got to come tonight. savingdinner.com/gut. Go get your seat right now. The seat is important because the seat is going to get you information I bet you didn't know about. When you start hearing about how impactful your gut health is to everything that you're doing in your life, every little health aspect that you're concerned about, you're going to get on it. You are going to get on it. So yeah, it is a gut punch, Catherine. Boom, boom. And I'm really excited about it. So I hope to see you there. So cheers. Here's to my Nancy. We're having a little hot milk mix if you're wondering what that is. This is part of a piggyback habit so that we can get that done. This is hot milk mix. Don't you like it? Maybe the carbonation will help. We don't have any carbonation in it, but you can add carbonated mineral water if you want. It can be sweet unless you dilute it enough. So maybe that's it. Try that. Q&As tomorrow. This is last call. Get your questions in now. Send an email to support@savingdinner.com and put question for Leanne on Friday, and that will get you into the queue. But I promise you, you got to do it now because it's tick, tick, tick. Time is almost up. So I want you to do that if you would, please. And also, April 1st is tomorrow. Can you believe that? We start the Hot Melt 30. Are you in? Who's in? Pinkies up if you're in. Hey, Doris. Who is doing this? I'm doing the Hot Melt 30. Now, Hot Melt 30 is pretty much, it's very similar food-wise, except more recipes, etc., to our Hot Melt Sprint. The difference is we put in the mindset piece. We put in a whole commitment piece. We get you to a different place because we recognize and we know that women are not just bodies. We are actual human beings with souls, and we have to check all the boxes. We are all the things: heart, mind, body, and soul. And this program just kind of puts it all together so that you can see how not just concentrating on what's between your toes on the scale is not the deal. I mean, yeah, it's important. There's some important stuff there, but I'll tell you what, what's really important? What's really important is understanding the whole of you. That's what the Hot Melt 30 is all about. Go check that website, savingdinner.com/30, THIRTY. You can get that handled. Look at all you guys who are going to do this. Lily, hello. Good to see you. Look at all of you who are going to be doing this. Jerry, it's nice to have you here. We also have our text messages. Don't forget about the text messages, okay? This is tomorrow. We have got the best text message going out. I have been so excited about the text message going out for tomorrow, and I can't wait. By the way, let me know what you think of it, okay? Go to, this is how you do it. Text the word join to 855-960-3720. Now, join needs to be all caps. It is case sensitive. And that's what you're going to text. And then we were going to send you a reply. To that reply, you have to reply yes. That means you're in. It's what we call in the biz a double opt-in. You know why we do this? It's for your protection, to make sure that you're not getting a bunch of spammy stuff, right? Do it. Do it. Yay, Gracie. I want you to do it. Hot Melt 30. Go get your guide. It's time. It's time, ladies. All right. Shall we get down to business then? All this week, you know what we've been talking about? Anybody? Anyone? We've been talking about little tiny shifts, haven't we? We've been talking about how we can change things up and how we can just make the switch that we need to be making all the time. I mean, constantly. There's constantly switches that we need to be making. Oh, one more thing. Kathy, hey, I'm glad you're in, by the way. One more thing, everyone. TikTok. Go give me some lovin' on TikTok. That's at savingdinner.com. Or rather tiktok.com/savingdinner. That's where you're going to find us. But we've got all kinds of content out there, so you're not going to see it anywhere else. So go check it out. I really want you over there on the TikTok. Oh, and one last thing. Can I just tell you a personal thing? So I want you to see, hey, butterfly, I want you to I'm going to tell you a quick story about my little book club. Right. And I'd show you my book, except my book is holding everything up. But we are studying Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. And wow, what a great group we had last night. We had women from all over the globe. We had a woman from Africa. We had, I think she's from, starts with an S. Sorry. I can't remember the name of the country. Sudan. Sorry. Big country. She's from Sudan. We had a woman from Ireland. We had a woman from, where was she from? One from Ireland. We had Brazil. So we had almost this international group, plus a lot of other women. There were 8 of us all together. I started this with it was one idea with another woman that I said, I just want to do this. And she said, yeah, well, would you be open to other people? Of course I'll be open to other people coming. And now we have 8 women in this group. And last night, it was just so cool to sit there and to talk about how this book is so impactful. And I believe that I'm gonna do a book study on this for for us. And if you're in inner circle, you might just get an invitation to that because I think it's going to be a cool book to study. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because when you start to make it, when you make a decision for yourself, and when you make you put out there, and you're not afraid to talk about something it is that you want and something that you are trying to create in your life, it's interesting how the universe conspires to bring that whole thing about when it's something that's for the good of the greater good of all, right? And I believe that when we are in touch with what it is that makes us tick, and we can really articulate how we feel and all of that, that's when we start to move the needle in our life. So it was a real awakening last night, and I'll share more about that later as we go. It was just our first meeting, so it was pretty exciting. Today we're going to be talking about making a shift to overthinking, from being an overthinker to being a thinker who thinks about her thinking. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I really, really want to bring it out to you again because, one, this is one of the best ways to allow your overthinking to, if you're a journaler, it's one of the best ways to get that overthinking out of your head. One of the things that I have found is that we spin around and around. It's a loop. It truly is a loop. But here's the reason why it's a loop. It's a loop because it doesn't have anywhere to go. And when we journal and when we dump it out, and even if it seems like a bunch of gobbledygook, if we get it out, we clear the space and give ourselves room to think in an effective way. Just hear me out on all of this. I'm going to give you some science to go with all of it because you know I like to do that. Flynn, I love it. I'm so glad you're here. Lucy, nice to have you here as well. And of course, our Joanne. The thing is that overthinking holds us back because overthinking turns into spiral thinking. Around and around and around we go. It is a carousel of crazy, overthinking is. And we find ourselves going back and forth to the same thing and doing the same thing and keep going. And we don't see the patterns because it's just part of our everyday. We kind of go into subconscious mode. And, you know, Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief, he talks greatly about that. And that's the thing is that we think we have no control over our thoughts, and nothing could be further from the truth, right? Nothing could be further from the truth. So, and I know you've said something like this before. I wrote some things down. These are things that I say to myself. Oh, I was lost in my thoughts. Ever do that? Sure, of course you were. My thoughts just get away from me. That's another one. And I got carried away by a thought. Those are things that we say about our thoughts that show us that just are smacking with this notion that we have no control over them. And it's not true. So we don't think about our thinking. That's the truth of the matter. It's just we don't. And we simply pick a thought out every once in a while that we maybe want to flip. And my whole thing is bringing us to the perspective of being aware of what our thinking is, being aware that, ooh, here comes the pattern again, and being aware that we're going around and around. Again, another plug for a very free, very inexpensive, dollar store composition book for a journal. Drop it. Drop it like it's hot. The reason we drop it out is so that we can make room for the processing. You can't process something when it's all packed in together like sardines. And as a matter of fact, one thing starts to look like the other. So today we're going to talk about two reasons why we want to do that. One is it's easier to get a big picture analysis when we do this. Have you noticed that big picture analysis really help you to say, and be a little bit more selective about what's what, rather than trying to figure out what's what. We don't have to figure out everything when it's all jammed in there together, but we can if we big picture it. Have you noticed that? For me, it's just everything. It's one of the reasons why I've shown you my pro-con list. It's one of the reasons why I journal as profusely as I do, because to sort out, I need to be able to see what's there. You can't see it if it's just jammed in there, right? And overthinking might be what I love this thing from John Ackloff. He wrote a book on overthinking, as a matter of fact, and he calls it the soundtrack. And it's exactly that. We all have a soundtrack. And you know this, that how, I mean, we just had the Academy Awards. Don't get me started on that, but I didn't watch it, but I know about all the stuff that happened in it. But soundtracks transform movies. It gives it the drama. It gives it the stuff. We feel it. There's an emotionality attached to a soundtrack. Navy SEAL author and an author, his name's David Goggins. I don't know if you've heard him, but he wrote a book called Can't Hurt Me. And Can't Hurt Me is a tremendous book. I listened to it on Audible. Big mistake, by the way, because the F-bomb situation was just a little bit much, but the content of the book is great. You just have to get past all that. I think it's better in print, to be honest. But here's something that he said. The most important conversations you'll ever have are the ones you'll have with yourself. You wake up with them, you walk around with them, you go to bed with them, you act on them, good or bad. Good or bad. So if you've got a good soundtrack going on in your head, you've got good positive thoughts. You've got thoughts that are cohesive. You've got thoughts that aren't on repeat. You've got thoughts that lead to action. That's the kind of thing that's going on when we have a good soundtrack. But a bad soundtrack, well, you've got the negative thoughts, very disempowering thoughts, and on repeat, the same thing that has never helped you out before. Am I right? You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Persistent, repetitive thoughts tend to be negative. Have you noticed that? This persistent negative stuff. And a lot of it is a setup from when we were kids. A lot of it is a setup from learned, reactions and ways of protecting ourselves and ways of just getting through and survival mechanisms, quite honestly. But the propensity is that we know that this is something that our amygdala does, because our amygdala is happy to hold us back if it means that it's going to keep us out of danger or out of any kind of risk or doing anything new, because that's what amygdalas do. So we can't let the amygdala run the show. So, and I'm going to prove that to you right now. Okay, are you ready for this? I'm going to want some pinkies up for this one. So hear me out. It's easier to remember something that we did that was embarrassing, or stuck your foot in your mouth, or something that you did that was bad. You can remember the feeling of it. You can almost relive the whole situation, even from something as traumatic as a childhood trauma, all the way through when you just said something that was embarrassing. I've shared a million things with, I seem to, maybe this is why I'm no longer in the Episcopal Church. This laugh, but seemed to be going down the aisle for communion one time with my dress tucked up into my pantyhose. This is way back in the day. And another time dragging some toilet paper on my feet. How does that happen? Oh, I remember it. I remember the emotions that went with it. And I remember just feeling just like I could feel the color drain from my face. We remember that stuff. Way back in the day, when I first started saving dinner, I started doing my own customer service. And guess what happened? When those nasty comments, because people are keyboard warriors, aren't they? They have absolutely no issue whatsoever with being complete asshats sometimes. And just, instead of being kind, they just unload on you. And I just remember saying, I'm no longer going to do this. I would get 100 people saying, this is so helpful, this is so great. And then get one person, who would say something horrible. And that's the thing that I would remember. Why do we do that? We do that because that's the way we are. We naturally gravitate to that, and we forget about all the good stuff. It's part of our overthinking, because we look at this. How can we fix this? How can we make this better? Why doesn't this person, they don't like me? What am I doing wrong? On and on it goes. We do that to ourselves. But, you have to remind yourself of your daily wins. This is why in the Take Back Your Life journal, we have a section for daily wins to remind you about how awesome you are, because you are. God doesn't make junk. Fearfully and wonderfully made on purpose and for purpose. Therefore, what does that tell you? Right? But in our humanness, we go back to the weakness, the overthinking, the negativity, and just, start really loading in on ourselves. And even when it's one negative comment to 100 positives, it's the negative thing that we go toward. So negativity would happily reign supreme in your head, happily, if you let it. Do you hear me? If you let it. And you know, I will tell you something. It's not like you've put out the welcome mat and say, come on in, negativity, come on in. I just want you to do this. But no, it's like they're little troops reporting for duty, sir, ready to go, ma'am, kind of a thing, because that's the way the whole thing works. Roy Baumeister, who is the author of The Power of Bad, How Negativity Rules Us All and How We Can Rule It, says, listen to this. There is no opposite of trauma in the English language. Did you know that? There is no opposite of trauma in the English language because no single event can have a lasting impact. You can recall happy moments, but it's the involuntary memories that tend to pop up, and they're generally negative. That's the way we're built, unfortunately. What's really interesting, though, is that when we overthink, our brains tend to get a little bit creative. Did you know that? Creative. How about that? So what happens is, and this is so interesting. I read this. Gosh, I wish I could give credit for where I read this, but I went boom like this. I want you to think about a memory that you have, something that's exquisitely old, an old memory, a negative one. Do you know our memories are like a Word document, or even better, a Google document. And if you use Google Documents, you know exactly what they're at. You edit that Google document, it just stays there. You don't have to click the edit. You just start doing it, right? And it stays that way. We edit our memories all the time. Did you know that? We edit them all the time. And even to the place where we may even start having little white lies about our memories. Because we don't have accurate recall. We think we do, but we don't. But this is the human equation. This is how the whole thing works. Every time a memory is told, it's repeated slightly different the next time. Think about that next time you start thinking about a negative memory, right? We confuse fake trauma for real trauma sometimes. And sometimes we have this hyperbolic way of blowing everything up, making mountains out of molehills. You've heard that one before. And believing what we already believe, and what it already believes. Malcolm Gladwell calls it the first one. He calls it the flashbulb moment. The first one is the flashbulb moments. So from retelling them and recalling them, they have a tendency to shift and change and morph. So there's on average a 60% decline in memory consistency. 60% of the time, the story changes. Now, I'm not saying you're a liar. I'm not saying I'm a liar. I'm just saying that our brains have a tendency to edit themselves, especially when it comes to the bad stuff. Sometimes that means we're blowing up the bad details a little bit more than we would. Because have you ever noticed when you're talking to like a husband and wife who are getting a divorce? Talk about perspective. He's got a version, she's got a version, right? And there's usually obviously some give and take, and there's usually a lot of different stuff. There's edited moments there too, especially over the long-term period. But 9/11 is a really good example of this. The psychologists did a whole study with them, and they asked the same folks the same question, and the details changed every time. So much so here's what they did. This professor went in and he took these students and asked them to write it down. Okay, this is when they were freshmen. Then when they were seniors, got those same students and asked them to write it down, their 9/11 stories. They changed. Some of them dramatically. And then he'd confront these students, say, oh, but your story, you said this your freshman year, you said this your senior year. And do you know, they're like, well, that's my writing, but that's not right. The first version isn't correct. It's the second version that's correct, because that is the third, the fourth edit on their Google Doc in their brain. Doesn't that blow you away? That's just the way we are, y'all. So the last thing that we have to look at You have it, I have it, we all have it, and it's our confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is that our belief systems go into the reticular activating system and look for things to support things that we already believe. In other words, we're not open as a rule for change. We just want to hear and see and, whatever things that we already believe. We're magnets for that information, as a matter of fact. We see it. We look for it. The reticular activating system, it's like looking for the red Prius in the crowd, right? If we're already going toward that whole thing. So, I just have to say, it goes for everything. It goes for your worldview, politics, religion, food, how you see yourself. Have you ever talked to somebody about food? You ever talked to a vegan, and have them bite your head off? Or have you ever talked to, somebody with a slightly religious difference of opinion about something? My brother has a very different religious opinion about certain things, and we've had a discussion. We finally just agreed to disagree and just leave it. Those are things that we need to do, and especially at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Not that he would come for Thanksgiving, but that's how it is. And then furthermore, when we go through these things and we make these declarations about ourselves, there are always self-fulfilling prophecies. I shared with you, I walk by a bakery and smell it. I gain weight thinking it was funny, and absolutely it did. But how many of you have walked around and said, I'll never lose weight. I'll never blah, 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 then you know what happens? When you say I'll never lose weight, then even though you've got the plan, even though you've got let's say it's sprint week and you're saying, I'll never lose weight. I get on the scale, nothing happens. I'll never lose weight. Suddenly your kids' goldfish crackers look like, yeah, that's a thing. That's what I'm going to go through. You weren't even thinking about it before, but the very declaration of I'll never lose weight, your brain says, okay, then game on. Let's go get some of those goldfish crackers. That's how it works, because your thoughts are direction for your life. Your thoughts tell you, and when you speak them, boy, oh boy, you've already thought it. Now you've spoken it. This must be real. Let's get going on that. So how do we fix all of this? I've got, how many things do I have for you? 5, I think, maybe more. Let me look. 5? Yep, 5. You ready? First things first. Do a brain dump. Do an if-then. Get it out. Use a journal, for heaven's sakes. Don't allow your brain to be clogged. It's time to dump it out. Keep dumping it out. And you know what? If it's on repeat and you keep dumping it, and I keep going back to this, I dare you to take a look at your journal from today versus your journal from a year ago if you're dumping out the same stuff, and see if there's the same, just like that professor study that I just told you about. Wouldn't that be interesting? Secondarily, and the if-thens are, if I do this, if I say this, if I do this particular thing, then this is what's going to happen, just so that you can play out your scenarios a little bit. Helpful? 2 is to create strong counter intentions. I am looking for space. I am kind of statements. For example, I can never lose weight. Instead, say your counter would be, I am losing weight, double the weight in half the time. That was the one thing that I started. That was one of my intentions that I did when I started realizing that I'm self-sabotaging myself, right? With this trying to be funny about smelling bakery stuff, even though I wouldn't even, dare walk in there and saying all of that stuff. Number 3 is to look for space to create possibility. Look for the space. There's always space to create a new possibility. Roy Bennett, who's the author of The Light in the Heart, says, time doesn't heal emotional pain. You need to learn to let it go. And the only way, in my estimation, that you can let it go is to process it. The only way to process it is to journal about it, is to talk to someone about it, is to seek professional help and learn to live side by side with an old memory. It's kind of like fear. We don't actually process and get rid of fear. What we do we do process and at least shrink it down. Fear never leaves, though. That's our fear fence. We talked about the fear fence. The fear is just not as big as we think it is. And when we can see that, we can then learn to live with it and just brush it off. It's just like an annoying, younger sister when you were a kid. You're just like, leave me alone, right? The number 4 is to take inventory, because you got to take inventory what you believe about. What do you really believe about? What is true to you? What is true about your possessions, your home, your habits, family, friends, obligations, goals, relationships, commitments, values? What are you about? Because when we understand what we're about, we can get to a core belief system and really start to love ourselves in our wholeness for who we are right now today. And we don't have to worry about the editing that we do on our Google Docs in our minds. We don't have to worry about all of this, because we're all in this together. We're all doing this, right? This is not just one person. We're all doing this, but we got to take inventory so that we can get past it. All right. Number 5 is write this all out, and then go through and redline 20 to 30% of the stuff that isn't serving you anymore, and say, why do I even believe this stuff? Because this is thinking about our thinking. This is evaluating the things that the hills that we've been dying on, because maybe the hill you died on when you were 30 and just say, I believe this to my grave, is something at 60 you're thinking, what a bunch of hooey. We change, we evolve, we become, if we're actively involved in our own evolution. So we can't leave our thoughts to chance. That's like asking a toddler to drive you to the grocery store, right? The toddler might understand that you get in the car, you're going to go someplace, but they don't know how to drive that car at all. And our soundtracks, as John Alcliffe says, are one of the most persuasive forms of fear, because the more you listen to it, the more easily you start to believe it. So I'm going to leave you with this from John Alcliffe's book, by the way, which is really good. It's called Soundtracks, by the way. If you can worry, you can wonder. If you can doubt, you can dominate. I love that one. If you can doubt, you can dominate. If you can spin, you can soar. So think about that. The contrast of black and white. We're not stuck. We're not trees, right? We have the ability to move. We have the ability to think. We have the ability to remove things in our lives that no longer work, including old beliefs, including old thoughts, including this propensity toward overthinking. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I love stuff like this, because it brings me back into the places that I get stuck. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I get stuck, and I do not want to be stuck. That's the worst thing that can possibly be. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you so much. And tonight, don't forget, it's the gut webinar. It's happening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Go to savingdata.com/gut and grab your seat. Without a seat, you can't get in. All right? Pinky's up to you, Sarah. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Check back for new episodes. If you missed the live show, you can always watch the replay. You can find Saving Dinner on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Until next time, pinkies up.